Some years back, I came up with a concept, if you will, for selling covered options to produce a steady income. Maximize revenue and minimize risk is what it's all about. Anyway, in the following part of the video, we'll go over the transaction set itself.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we're taking a closer look at something our sources highlight: selling covered stock options. It's a pretty interesting way to think about income.
Absolutely.
We've really sifted through some material here, and it all kind of centers on this core engine they call a transaction set. Okay, let's unpack this a bit. So at the heart of it, you've got two basic things: PUT contracts and call contracts.
The fundamentals.
Right. So when you write a PUT, you're basically agreeing to buy stock if it hits a certain price, the strike price.
You're obligated, yeah.
And a call contract is the opposite. You're agreeing to sell stock at a specific strike price.
Okay.
But here's the key thing, right? In both cases, you collect money a premium right up front, instantly.
And that happens whether the contract actually gets used or exercised or not.
Exactly. That premium is yours to keep.
What's fascinating here is really nailing down these initial ideas, understanding the obligation, yes, but also that upfront cash, the premium.
And we're talking covered options here.
Crucial point. It means you actually have the stock if a call is exercised, or you definitely have the cash set aside if a PUT is exercised. It adds a layer of control.
Makes sense.
And getting this foundation is, well, it's essential before we dive into the whole life cycle strategy.
Okay, so with that groundwork laid, let's talk about the full journey, this transaction set.
The whole process.
Our sources describe it as starting basically when you sell a PUT contract and someone takes it, and it ends only when a call contract you sold is eventually exercised.
It completes the set.
So what happens when that first PUT contract gets exercised? Well, the stock is put on you, meaning you buy it at the agreed strike price.
And that purchase price, that becomes your cost basis for those shares.
Right, the starting point for calculating profit or loss later. And you absolutely must have the cash ready to buy those shares.
No leverage involved here in the covered sense.
Then down the line, maybe you sell a call contract on those same shares if that gets exercised.
If the stock is called away from you, you sell it at the call strike price.
Transaction complete.
Now, if we connect this to the bigger picture, the sources talk about an ideal situation.
Ah, yes, the perfect world scenario.
Exactly. The ideal is when the strike price where you bought the stock from the exercised PUT is the same as the strike price where you sell it from the exercised call.
So no gain or loss on the stock itself.
Precisely. In that perfect case, all those premiums you collected along the way, that's pure profit.
Sounds great, but...
Yeah, here comes the reality check. The sources are very quick to point out the ideal rarely exists.
Why is that?
Well, think about it. The market doesn't stand still. The stock's price is likely to move, sometimes quite a bit, between the time you bought the stock from the PUT
and the time you eventually sell a call that gets exercised.
Right. So those strike prices often end up being different. You might sell the call at a lower strike than your cost basis, creating a capital loss on the stock itself.
Okay, so if the ideal is rare, how does this actually make money consistently? How do the sources say you achieve profitability?
Good question.
What really jumped out at me was this point. Often, you might sell several PUT contracts, or maybe several call contracts on the stock you hold.
That just expire worthless. They never get exercised.
Exactly. And the crucial part is the premiums from every single contract you sold within that transaction set, whether it expired or got exercised, they all add up.
They accumulate.
It becomes this pool of revenue for that specific set of transactions, almost like little bits adding up over time.
That's a really important mechanism. It's not just about one contract. It's the sum of all the premiums for that batch of stock.
So the profit isn't just about avoiding a loss on the stock trade itself.
No, not entirely. This raises an important question. What is the actual condition for profit then?
What did the sources say?
They're pretty clear on this. Profit happens when the total premiums you collected across that entire transaction set are greater than any capital loss you realized when the stock was finally called away.
So the premiums have to cover the difference if you sold the stock for less than you bought it for.
Exactly. The accumulated revenue cushions or overcomes the capital loss. They also mention a kind of sweet spot.
Oh.
Yeah, especially in like a calmer market. Selling contracts with strike prices fairly close to the stock's current market price often generates decent premiums pretty regularly.
So aiming for steady income rather than big wins.
It seems to lean that way, balancing smaller, more frequent premium collections against maybe larger but less frequent capital losses if the stock moves against you significantly.
Okay, that covers the mechanics, the premiums, the profit condition.
Yeah.
But then the sources shift gears a bit, right? They start talking about looking at this like a business.
A very important shift in perspective.
They say if you really want this to be a sustainable income thing for you, you need a business level metric. And they pinpoint free cash flow.
FCF, yeah. They call it the most important measure for growing this specific type of income stream.
It really frames it differently, doesn't it? Not just trades, but an operation.
Absolutely. This isn't just some abstract accounting term here. For your income generation using this strategy, free cash flow is like the ultimate health check.
How so?
Well, it tells you very clearly how much actual cash profit you've generated that's, free to either reinvest or take out after accounting for all the capital movement.
Capital movement meaning buying the stock.
Right. The formula they give is pretty direct. Free cash flow, revenue net capital expenditure.
Revenue being all those premiums collected.
Correct. And that net capital expenditure, they define it as your cost basis, what you paid for the stock initially via the PUT plus or minus the replacement cost.
Replacement cost. Like if you sold at a loss and needed more capital to buy the next lot.
Exactly. Or if you sold at a profit, that reduces the net capital needed. It captures the actual cash flow tied up in owning and replacing the underlying stock. It measures the real growth potential of your specific operation here.
Here's where it gets really interesting, I think. It connects the trading mechanics directly to business sustainability. So what does this all mean for you, the listener? We've walked through the process of the PUTs, the KELs, the premiums.
The transaction set.
Right. And even if that ideal scenario, matching strike prices, doesn't happen often, understanding how those premiums accumulate over the entire set, it shows a path to potentially generating income.
It's not just random trades.
No, it feels much more strategic when you look at it that way.
And that really is the core idea, I think. When you start rigorously tracking something like free cash flow, you shift from just making trades to actively managing an income-generating system.
A system built on those premiums.
Yeah. It forces you to think longer term. How does all the upfront cash collected balance out against potential stock losses over the life of that transaction set? It's about sustainability.
It really makes you think, doesn't it?
Yeah.
How many other financial strategies, if you really break them down like this, reveal a kind of underlying logic, a blueprint for how value is actually created? Something to chew on.
Definitely food for thought.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.